call.
McKnight. Myers.
Here.
Roa.
Here.
Vogel.
Here.
Kinder.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment on agenda items.
We have none.
Notice of executive session meetings.
None.
Approval of minutes, June 3rd, 2025, regular meeting.
So moved.
I'll second. Discussion? Roll call.
Myers.
Aye.
Roa.
Aye.
Vogel.
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Communications.
None.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I received, not to enter into official communications, but just calls and emails from folks about the water main break last week. And I'm wondering if council is amenable, if we could request from utility providers, like what their policy is for alerting folks, in particular renters, right, whose landlord didn't necessarily pass along information or timely. So I was wondering if we could just know what the policy is. Just start with that.
Yeah.
Is that we okay with
because I
requesting
do the
that?
same
I've
thing.
just gotten a lot of, okay,
No, I also have, yeah.
thanks.
Thank you, Marion. Manager's report.
The only item that I have was just an update on Asbury Manor. Asbury Manor was cited for the potholes. Nick from Code Enforcement has been in contact with their groundskeeper and a new point of contact for Regal. They are in compliance at this point with grass, aside from one small portion of a field on the east side. It's our understanding that they also have a contract with an asphalt company out of Erie to complete the pothole repair this week.
Great. Okay.
Thanks, Marion. Old business. Can I have a motion to approve the ABC's appointments? Mrs. Josh Sherritt for the Planning Commission.
Also moved.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Myers.
Aye.
Roa.
Aye.
Vogel. Kinder.
Aye. What other openings? I'm sorry, I was thinking of the ABCs. What other openings do we have?
We still have beautification. We have one for the rec authority. We're working on getting that one planned. EAC, thank you, yeah. So I'll repost those openings for those that we have.
Thanks. I figure every time we appoint them, we should probably go over which ones we still have. All right, discussion, rental inspection program.
So at the study session last week, the thought of bringing the rental inspection program in-house was raised with council. There were some questions about timeliness and completion of the inspections. Scott Barnes is here to talk about it a little bit and kind of give his thoughts and code enforcement's thoughts on moving forward.
Hi and welcome. First of all, with bringing the rental inspection in-house and doing the inspections, our office feels that we would be able to have better communication with the landlords. We've already talked about various ways of improving on letting the landlords know what days we're looking at and being able to get a system in place where they will contact us once they receive the postcards for scheduling to make sure that that is a good date with them, and then we will follow up before the actual inspection. Because a lot of them will come forward and say, I never received the postcard, I didn't know there was an inspection on that date, and that counts as one of their strikes. Or if they call off too early, that way if we get in touch with them beforehand, we can do that. We've also noticed with the scheduling the BIU has been supplying us, that there is a lot of weeks that are not scheduled whatsoever. I counted roughly 16 weeks from July 9th of last year through July 14th of this year. And that's a lot of dates that they have no one doing those inspections and all that, which hinders us being able to stay on track and have them all completed by the end of the year. I feel with having it in-house, we'll have more time to devote to that and just be able to work more closely with them. We've turned around and seen there's been some discrepancies with some of the inspections that I've seen happen out with the BIU, where I've had a renter call me and ask me to come in, some things that have been missed. Not that that's a necessarily huge fault with someone, because anybody can miss, especially when they're only allotting a short period of time. Did they receive they did not receive it, okay. There are currently 1,182 inspections that still needs to be completed before the end of the year. Time frame wise, if we can do this as quickly as possible, I base this off of no later than August 1st deadline of being able to complete it by the end of the year. That would be 109 days total, less 7 days for holiday. So there's actually 102 physical working days to remain. And then we can go through the calendar, either 5 days a week or 3 days or 2 days. The best time frame would be 3 days a week devoting from here till the end of the calendar year, and should be able to get them all completed and done before the next round we would start.
You're saying August 1st is when we would start, is what we're, if that was to happen, that's what
Yes.
the proposal
Would like to
would be.
see it as soon as possible, but August 1st would really be a close deadline then to try and get it all done by the end of the year.
Okay,
Because we would need to give BIU a 30-day notice
okay.
of termination of the contract. And so that would put us about August 1st for beginning.
Any penalties for cancellation at this point?
No.
Okay.
So that's like 20 inspections a day? Like
Yeah.
if we did 3 days a
Yeah,
week?
19.3 inspections is what it would come out to a day. If it's 5 days a week, it would come out to 11.5 inspections a day. A lot of it is going to be, initially, I'm sure, bringing it in-house. It'll be a slow start up for the first week or two as we start getting into things, making the phone calls and getting the information out and so forth. But it will just ramp up faster and faster. And if need be, we can devote 5 days a week. I know currently the BIU, most of the time it's 2 days a week. Every once in a while they'll do 3 days, and sometimes 1 or no days.
How long do you figure an inspection takes?
I know the BIU schedules 15 minutes. I personally feel that is way too fast to go through, that you're missing things in that speed. I would prefer to see at least 20 minutes, possibly upwards to 30, depending upon how large the unit is, to be inspected. If it's a single-family home that's 3 stories, 4 bedrooms, it could be, pushing closer to a 30-minute time frame. But that gives you time to go over with the landlord. I know currently they will inspect, say, 30 units with one landlord, and that may be just 5 buildings, but 30 units type thing. But when they get done, at the end, it's not till they get done, they'll say, okay, sign all 30 of these papers, and they don't go over really any of the issues that this was wrong, or anything like that. And I would like to see more one-on-one dealing with the landlord, pointing out those issues.
How about the time needed to do write-ups if you have a non-compliant unit? I mean, if you're working literally round the clock, 3 days a week, just do inspections, are the other 2 days a week sufficient to get the reports done?
The reports are being done right at the time. It's not how we currently do a violation and all that. It's not part of that process. There is a paper that we use on site that we mark off if there's any issues. And there's a duplicate copy that is then given to the landlord with our notations on it right then. And then it's either passed or there's a conditional pass, or it's a failure, in which case they need to correct those items within a certain time frame.
Thank you.
So I certainly feel like, I hear the point about like quality control, like it would allow us to do that. I had been thinking, you know, I know that in the past we've talked about like trying to get like resources out to people, and that's like hard to do through BIU, and so, and then the point you raised too about like the communication with landlords and being able to maybe be more proactive and
Yes.
communicative, I think, are all compelling reasons to me. My own, like, as long as you all are eager to take it on and it like wouldn't overburden, I think that's the concern, was like asking you, that it's a lot more work, and certainly go to part-time to full-time, right, is like, that's your call, but, right, I think if the department and you were willing to do it, I think it's great.
I know I've asked about taking it over, and I know there's talks about possibly that being an option. I would most enjoy taking that over and doing that.
When you say a slow startup, do you think that that is mostly like getting a hold of landlords, getting things scheduled? Because that's the part I see taking the longest, right?
Yes.
Not being out and doing it, it's getting, you know, the schedule on and talking to the landlords and making sure, you know, that kind of administrative part.
Yeah, as an example, one of the things that Justin and I have talked about is currently right now the process is the BIU sends a postcard out and says, this is the date of your inspection, this is the time of your inspection. And then come that date and time, they show up and expect the person to be there. If they're unable to make the appointment, they have to call within 3 days, or prior to 3 days to cancel, or else they get charged. That is a missed inspection, and that counts as one of the 2 inspections that they get. What I would like to see is either a phone number or an email address that when they receive the postcard, they respond either by email or by phone number saying, yes, we received the postcard, date and time is great, and then about a week, like that Friday before the following week, phone calls being made out saying, just to confirm, we have an appointment on Tuesday at 9 o'clock to make sure that it's good, that they haven't forgot about it or anything else. Because a lot of people, that's one of the things that Justin gets a lot of phone calls on. I didn't even know we had an appointment.
Mary Ann, are you looking for a policy statement from us? And if so, can we act on it tonight?
I don't think you need to act on it this evening. I think that Mary Ann's looking for a consensus and a direction and a notice that this is occurring. I believe that as city manager, Mary Ann has the necessary authority to just send out the notice of termination on the contract. But given the visibility of the issue, I don't think it was something that we wanted to do without you being on board.
Sure.
Aye.
Yeah, I also, just a thing for us to maybe think about is, and we don't have to have an answer tonight, but like what an appeals process looks like. I think part of a third party doing it, like, provides a little bit of like protection, right? And so if it's the city doing the inspections and people want to appeal what their citations or something, like what that looks like might be helpful to think about it ahead of time, what that process is. Just to circumvent it. Anyway, aye.
Yeah. Gretchen?
Aye.
Also aye, so you'll just get back to us as to what you hear back from, and,
Yep. Great, we'll do that.
great, thanks.
Thanks. Thank you, Scott.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Glad that you want to do this.
Right.
It takes a rare bird.
Discussion parking permits.
Hi, it's me again. Included in your packets is a one-page summary of parking permit types that were introduced in the draft ordinance that you were presented with last week. The top three are the most significant types, of which two are new. That would be the non-reserved lot permits and the metered space permits for downtown. I am requesting council's approval to move forward towards implementing them, so we have those options readily available to us when they become useful.
All four?
The top three are the most important. We would like to focus on those.
Peter, I'm wondering if we could possibly reduce that to two. Have the reserved parking and have everybody else, whether you're a resident, a shopper, an employee, a business owner, a property owner, that anybody has the ability to buy a permit. And those who don't want to can still feed the meter.
So those permits would be good in lots and at the meters?
Yeah, not in the reserved lots, but, yeah, lots and meters.
So we keep the reserved lots that still have reserved
Keep the
spaces?
reserved lots. And maybe even waive, I say this advisedly, the time limitations. So if someone works at the courthouse and pays a monthly fee and they park for 8 hours on the diamond, okay, they park for 8 hours on the diamond even though it's a 5-hour meter, and they don't get charged.
In preparing these, I was respecting the complaint that I think still exists amongst downtown business owners, that some downtown employees park long-term at meters right outside their businesses. If you have suggestions how to waive time limits for these folks while still making the businesses happy and ensuring turnover, especially on places like Market Street, Chestnut Street, Market Square, Park Avenue, I'd be welcome to hear them.
I think that's.
Otherwise noted, reserved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that that's a good statement, like a rebuttal, what you said, that, and a reason to just focus on residents who, that they would, that right there, as a person who gets those complaints about, employers and employees taking time pressure.
I do understand Jim's point that time limits are less important at some places around the city than they are at other places. I don't know how to reconcile that two types, reserved off-street lots, and then everybody else, everywhere else, without time limits, would not also incur folks parking right in front of businesses that want that turnover.
Chestnut Market and Park Ave are the three that you'd be worried about the most?
Yes. I have noticed an increase of traffic, especially for on-street parking on, around, especially our Market Street. Chestnut Street is pretty hot to touch when it comes to converting any of those spaces to long-term spaces. There's also been an increase in on-street parking on Park Avenue as reflected in our parking meter fees. So that.
Sorry.
No. So I'm just saying, for instance, those appear to be a different beast clearly than the empty spaces that we see typically around, say, Diamond Park and South Main Street.
And I know you've studied these. You know what spaces, I see you walking around all the time. So I know that you know exactly what spaces are underutilized and which ones have the problem. And I would trust your judgment on that. And if, I'd be willing to even have two-hour limits in certain specified areas, but still have the parking available that people want a permit. Again, no guarantees.
All right, understood.
Yeah, I guess I was gonna ask about if you could talk about the motivation for having time limits that are longer, right? So I understand where there are 2-hour time limits, like that's to turn over and to encourage people to move their car so that another patron can park downtown. Where it's 5 hours, why do we care? Why do we even put a time limit on it at like a 5-hour? You know what I'm saying?
Partly.
Why do we care? Yeah.
I would credit our earlier meter rates. As you know, we have to raise some portion of revenue through reserved spaces to justify having had at one point 3 parking garages simultaneously. Reserved spaces, as opposed to drop-in meter spaces, was expressed as guaranteed revenue. You still
So it
pay
makes
for
those
the
a premium,
permit.
it makes the reserve space a premium.
It would have, except that in our early, or meter rate, if you were to say 9 to 5 enforcement, that's 8-hour days, Monday through Friday, that's 22 days a week, you would be paying $44 in quarters, whereas our reserved parking fees are currently $50 a month, which would then completely devalue getting a reserved parking permit if you could just park at a meter instead. I'm not saying that that system can't or shouldn't change, but the value of the time limit is also to ensure the turnover, and that even our like longer term folks, like lawyers at the courthouse or anybody who has business longer than 2 hours, folks who are at the library, for instance, for extended programming or to get their taxes done and have things that 2-hour limits, excessive 5-hour limits, helpful for those, while also still preventing folks from just camping their car right outside the library and preventing people who need, actual close access to those places. I mean, that's one reason for that, or one justification.
Does Lindy, do they still track, like if a car's been at a meter and that whatever you call that, you just keep filling the meter? Do they
You
mark the
chop the
tire?
tire.
Yes.
Chop the- I wasn't sure, I just was wondering. Thanks.
Yeah, they do.
So, Peter, you're suggesting that we move forward with permit types. Can you talk about how, like the process, especially for like moving from reserve lot spaces to non-reserve lot permits? Or like incorporating both of those two? Are you envisioning that like some parking lots might keep all reserved lot spaces and some would be converted to non-reserved lot use? Or do you give permit holders the choice, right? Like if you wanna, right, I could see us putting something out to people who do have a space right now and say like, for a cheaper option is gonna be this new system of parking if you want it, otherwise you can keep your spot where you have it.
Sure.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
I think there is some optimal combination of reserved spaces and non-reserved spaces. What I was thinking originally first is that we have special arrangements with some folks like the DEP that require reserved spaces for them. When it comes to parking lots that are usually underused, it genuinely does not matter as long as there's enough empty spaces going around. If I have my spot when there's an equivalent spot 2 stalls down. So when thinking about any potential closures of the parking garage and knowing how that might displace the reserved space people in the parking garage, and that we'd have to accommodate them into other of our city's surface lots, then having a circulation of people to be able to use any of those reserved, empty, underused reserved spaces in our lots becomes more essential. It's not that essential right now, but I'm looking ahead to the future when it could be very useful. I know that this was a struggle, for instance, even about a decade ago, when we were thinking about the repairs or closure of the mill run lot. What I'm thinking of is looking at our empty, our underused parking lots that are not ever approaching 100% full, and saying, why shouldn't, even if they do get to be 100% booked, if they're still only being used 60% of the time, why shouldn't we broaden the offerings that we have for parking? It seems somewhat fair.
I'm so sorry. If possible, I just zoned out for part of what you were saying. I'm really sorry. But can you just like, are you envisioning that some of our lots would have like mixed permit types?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That helps, and the other things help too.
Sure.
I was wondering, our email exchange, like if we did that, the non-reserved lot permit, and you mentioned zone, I was wondering if you've been thinking of zones of parking, like certain, there was like a market house zone, a diamond zone versus a lot like that people would have access to. I was just curious if you guys had thought zones, because it was the thing that I had a question, just.
Right. Well, the parking that we have is not distributed evenly throughout the city.
Yeah.
There's far more underutilized meter parking on the eastern part of downtown around Diamond Park, and there's an excess, partially thanks to the Market Square's garage and its underuse, of reserved parking to the west part of town. Sometimes this doesn't necessarily match. But like we say, we can introduce different characteristics to different zones based on their need. For instance, where we have more meters, that might be a better place for, say, the opening up the metered space permits for downtown residents than, say, opening up Market Street to there, and instead encouraging Market Street downtown residents to use the non-reserved off-street permits. So yes, possible. I don't necessarily see the need now. I think it would be something to institute once we do find a need, and if we do find that people's use of these permits are choking certain areas.
Yeah.
Which so far is just hypothetical.
Do you have thoughts on rollout? Like, are we thinking at all about timing or anything, or this is just like getting a sense from council if we want to move forward?
This is just putting it on paper so we
Sure.
have it handy in the future.
So that's what
That's
the
very willing.
expectation
It could
is.
be anything.
Yeah.
Consensus. Keep
Consensus
moving.
on the first three, and then we'll come back with timelines and pricing suggestions and those things if it's a yes.
And those first three, again, are the reserved lot spaces, as we have now. You get your space. The non-reserved lot permit, which is you're allowed to park in this parking lot or this zone,
First
but
come,
no,
first served.
first come, first served, no guaranteed spot. And downtown resident meter space permits, which is kind of the pilot that we were doing, right, with downtown residents. It would kind of just be making that permanent. Okay. And at this time, we're not considering the meter fee waiver permit.
It was an idea, but we don't need to right now. No.
Yeah, you can use it, or quarters. That's fine. I consent. I'm
Jim, thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go along with it. I would still like to open up that third category to residents in general, not just downtown residents, but.
Gretchen, what are your thoughts? Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, just move forward with those three, Peter.
Yeah, me too. Cross that bridge.
All right. New business, resolution, authorized signatures, and award bid 2025 street paving, Lindy paving, $170 $1,743.25. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Bids for this year's city paving were opened on June 5th. After review by Nathan from Public Works and Porter Consulting, it's recommended to award the bid to Lindy Paving. There are 5 main areas for paving this year. This includes the Mark Upper parking lot where the amphitheater is being built, Moyer Avenue from Martha Drive to Harts Avenue, Forest Avenue from Harts Avenue to Edgewood Drive, Limber Road from Beechwood Drive to Leslie Road, and Jackson Park Drive from North Main Street to Linda Lane.
Okay. Where, is this capital borrow? Borrow? Capital borrow. We
It's all the
borrowed
same.
this, it's all the same.
It's all
We
the
don't
same.
just have capital money that we didn't borrow.
We do not have
We
this
borrowed
one.
everything that was free. Okay, all right. 70 is not the most I've seen.
No. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a brief comment, because people will invariably ask, every time we award a bid, I remind people that there are like 4 or 5 different pots of money that pay for paving. Tonight, this is capital borrowing. In some areas, it's a CDBG fund, if it's income sensitive. But that doesn't apply, say, to an area in a floodplain. And then there's theoretically at least liquid fuels. Have I missed something?
Sometimes we have federal reserve.
Okay. So this happens to be one that we're borrowing money for.
Not, yes.
We have already borrowed.
Yeah,
Already
it's
We've
borrowed.
already borrowed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we need to, hang on. Any other questions? All right, roll call.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville awarding a contract in the amount of $170,743.25 to Lindy Paving for the City of Meadville's 2025 streets paving. Myers,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Public comment on non-agenda items?
We have none this evening.
All right, council member statements. Jim?
Thank you. 2 things. I'd like to extend on behalf of the city our sympathies to Kim Moore on the tragic loss of her husband over the weekend. And on a little happier note, to congratulate Meadville Volleyball, who made it to states. Unfortunately, they didn't have back-to-back victories, but they came in second, which is really impressive. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I guess just that Kim's husband passing away, it's just heartbreaking for everyone in the community. It's felt it, just his athletes and, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine his family. So our hearts are with you, Kim.
Thanks, Gretchen. Autumn?
Yeah, also express sympathy and send much love to Kim and her kids. It's yeah, I can't imagine what a hard time it is. Appreciate the work that she does for the city. Thanks folks for coming tonight. Those of you who are here. Eli, it's great to see you again, back. Seeing Eli here reminds me that I do hope that we can continue on with the junior council person program. Daniel graduated early, so I'm willing, I think maybe once school starts, to like do a circuit in the school and try to get some young people to apply. If any other council people or city staff wanna accompany, I might reach out to like social studies teachers or something and see if we can't get a new cohort. Eli, tell your friends that it was great. All the younger kids, tell them you really
I just
enjoyed it.
emailed Rena about it.
No, yeah, no matter what you really thought, tell them it was really tell them it was riveting every time. Everything we did was so interesting. But truly, if you've got feedback, we'll take that too. It was a big weekend over the weekend, and just really grateful to all the people who made it so. The Thurston Classic Committee, how fun it is to gather for Thurston every year. Second Saturday crew, even though second Saturday kind of didn't happen, but I talked to the organizer, and that morning, a bunch of shop owners opened up to house vendors in their shops for the day. So it was still kind of a scattered, it was like a second Saturday crawl, which was great. The Historical Society had the Historic Homes Tour, so thanks to them for organizing that. The Neighborhood Center hosted Second Saturday Night Live in the Arc Green Space. It was a packed and beautiful weekend, and a lot of people worked hard to make it happen, so thank you to those folks.
Right on. Thanks, Autumn. Yeah, my heart is broken for Kim and her babies, right? Tragic loss, and thank you, Marianne, for letting everybody know and getting things together. You do such a wonderful job in a bad situation. I'm so sorry, right? So sorry. And right, being a part of Meadville this weekend, really, it just makes me so very proud with all of the stuff going on, and then made me think through conversations that we need to be ambassadors for Meadville and invite those people that maybe don't know what's going on and take them to these events, right? And make sure that they are a part, because it's really tough to be alive right now, and it's really tough to hear everything happening, right? And be disconnected, right? So it is really our job to connect people with the good work that is happening here in this town, and with the good people that are doing all that work to keep people connected and make people feel like they belong. We are a community that cares about each other. I think that is obvious when people walk down the street and they see 3 vendors in Hello Sunshine, right?
She took in Magic Steve.
Yeah, and he was doing the balloons and then, right? It was really cool to see how we, got together and invited people in so that the event didn't have to be canceled, right? And gave space to the people that would have been out on the street. So it was, it's a pretty awesome sight when plans change or hurdles are thrown out in Meadville. We're quickly adapting and fixing those things, and that's what makes us the most special. So embrace Meadville, invite people in, and let's just be together, during the toughest times. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Myers.
Aye.
Roa.
Aye.
Vogel.
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye.